The Beauty Queen Killer. New evidence, old secrets. True crime unsolved mystery. In the world of true crime, some names never truly disappear. They fade into archives, into court transcripts, into the memories of families still waiting for answers. But every so often, a name returns. Not because of a new arrest, not because of a confession, but because new eyes look at old evidence and see something everyone else missed. In recent months, international investigators and independent researchers have publicly suggested that Christopher Wilder, known to history as the Beauty Queen Killer, may be connected to additional unsolved murders in the United States, dating as far back as the 1960s. These claims are not formal legal conclusions. They are theories under renewed examination. But they are powerful enough to reopen conversations that many believed were closed forever. Today, we revisit who Christopher Wilder was, what he was officially convicted of, and why new investigative work is raising questions about crimes that were never tied to him until now. This is a story about patterns, about missed connections, and about how the past can still change. Who was Christopher Wilder? Christopher Bernard Wilder was born in Australia in 1945. By the time he entered adulthood, he had already developed a reputation for manipulation, charm, and control. To the outside world, Wilder often presented himself as a photographer, a talent scout, a promoter connected to modeling and beauty pageants. But behind that image was a pattern of behavior that would later define his legacy. Throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, Wilder traveled extensively across the United States, between countries, frequently changing locations. This mobility would later become a central focus of investigators. In 1984, Wilder was arrested after a nationwide manhunt in the U.S. He died later that year during a confrontation with law enforcement in New Hampshire. Before his death, Wilder was formally linked to multiple violent crimes, primarily involving young women he targeted under false pretenses related to modeling opportunities. But what investigators could prove, and what may have happened, are not always the same thing. The crimes we know about. Wilder's confirmed crimes followed a disturbing pattern. He approached women in public spaces, presented himself as a professional photographer or scout, promised modeling or pageant-related opportunities, gained trust through confidence and authority. Once isolated, the situation would escalate. By the time he was stopped, law enforcement had linked him to multiple confirmed homicides across several U.S. states. However, even during the original investigations, authorities acknowledged something unsettling. The timeline didn't fully add up. Wilder's travel records showed long periods where his location was unclear. He crossed state lines frequently. He interacted with communities later associated with unsolved disappearances. At the time, investigative tools were limited. No DNA databases, no digital tracking, no unified interstate data sharing like we have today. Many cases remained just that, unsolved. Who were the victims of Christopher Wilder? Known, documented cases, not speculative links. Christopher Wilder targeted young women, many of whom were aspiring models, students, or pageant contestants. What made his crimes particularly chilling wasn't just the violence. It was how carefully he selected victims who trusted him. Below is a clear, human-centered look at the people whose lives were taken. 1. Victim profile pattern. Rather than random attacks, Wilder followed a consistent victim profile. Young women, mostly late teens to mid-20s, often ambitious, independent, or career-focused. Many responded to modeling or photography offers. Several were college students or pageant hopefuls. Most had no prior connection to Wilder. This pattern is important because it shows intent and planning, not impulsive violence. 2. Notable victims. Confirmed cases. Trina Marine. Age, 18. Location, Florida. Background, aspiring model. Trina was approached with what appeared to be a legitimate opportunity. She disappeared shortly after meeting Wilder. Her case became one of the earliest signs that a serial offender was operating across state lines. Shannon Siders. Age, 16. Location, California. Background, high school student. Shannon's disappearance deeply affected her community. Investigators later connected her case through travel records and behavioral similarities, highlighting how Wilder moved frequently to avoid detection. Michelle Korf. Age, 18. Location, Nevada. Background, college student. Michelle's case demonstrated Wilder's ability to blend into everyday environments. Friends described her as cautious, underscoring how convincing and manipulative he could be. Kimberly Leach. Age, 12. Location, Florida. Background, middle school student. Kimberly's murder became one of the most tragic and widely cited cases linked to Wilder. It marked a turning point in the investigation and significantly escalated law enforcement urgency. Survivor accounts. Narrated statement. Some of the most important insights into Christopher Wilder's crimes come not from case files, but from the voices of the few who survived encounters with him. One survivor recalled that Wilder did not appear threatening at first. He presented himself calmly, confidently, and with a convincing sense of authority. He spoke in a way that made resistance feel risky and cooperation feel safer. She later explained that fear did not arrive all at once. Instead, it grew slowly, through isolation, uncertainty, and constant pressure. She described feeling controlled without realizing exactly when control began. Another survivor said that Wilder relied heavily on psychological manipulation. He gave instructions in a steady, deliberate tone, creating the illusion that he was always one step ahead. Both survivors described moments where fear and confusion blurred together. They were forced to make decisions under intense stress, often believing that compliance was the only way to stay alive. One survivor escaped after recognizing a brief moment of opportunity. She later said the decision to act came instinctively, not logically. There was no clear plan, only the urgency to survive. After reaching safety, she immediately sought help, providing critical information that helped alert authorities. Her courage contributed to law enforcement understanding how Wilder operated. The survivors later emphasized that escaping did not feel like strength at the time. It felt like desperation mixed with hope. They described survival as a result of timing, instinct, and chance. Their accounts reveal a crucial truth often missed in true crime stories. Survival does not mean the absence of fear. It means enduring it and acting despite it. These voices remain essential reminders that behind every headline is a human experience, and that survival itself is a powerful form of testimony. The cold cases that never went away. Across the United States, from the late 1960s through the early 1980s, dozens of cases shared eerie similarities. Young women disappearing after encounters with strangers, last seen responding to job or opportunity offers. Locations near highways, motels, or public venues. Minimal physical evidence. For decades, these cases sat in files labeled, "No known suspect." But recently, independent investigators and international researchers began re-examining these files, not with assumptions, but with pattern analysis. They weren't asking, "Can we prove Wilder did this?" They were asking, "Do these cases share characteristics that overlap with known behavior?" And the answer, in some instances, appeared to be yes. Why many victims were never identified? Several factors contributed to unresolved cases. Wilder traveled extensively across multiple states. Victims were often alone and newly arrived in cities. Some disappearances were initially classified as runaways. Limited forensic technology in the 1970s, 80s. No centralized missing persons databases at the time. The new investigative claims. According to recent reports circulating online and in investigative journalism circles, researchers have identified geographic overlap between Wilder's confirmed travel routes and unsolved cases. Witness descriptions that match Wilder's appearance and methods. Employment and pageant-related fronts similar to those he used later. Importantly, these claims do not constitute legal findings. They are investigative hypotheses, but they are being taken seriously enough to prompt renewed public discussion. In several cases, families who had waited decades for answers are now hearing a familiar name for the first time. And that alone has changed the conversation. Why these cases were never connected. To understand why these cases went unlinked for so long, we need to understand the era. In the 1960s and 70s, crimes were investigated locally. Interstate coordination was limited. Serial crime profiling was still developing. If a suspect crossed state or national borders, connections were often lost. Wilder exploited this system, not through sophistication, but through movement. And once he died, many unanswered questions died with him. Or so it seemed. Modern technology, old evidence. Today, investigators have tools that didn't exist during Wilder's lifetime. Digital databases, behavioral profiling software, international data sharing, pattern matching algorithms. Researchers are now able to overlay timelines, travel routes, and case details in ways previously impossible. And while this does not guarantee answers, it does offer something rare in true crime. New perspective on old evidence. What can be proven and what cannot? It's important to be clear and responsible. Christopher Wilder cannot be charged for crimes today. He cannot stand trial. He cannot respond to allegations. Any new connections remain theoretical unless officially confirmed by law enforcement. But for families, even the possibility of understanding what happened can matter. Not for punishment, but for closure. Why this story matters now. True crime is not about glorifying violence. It's about understanding patterns, preventing future harm, and remembering those whose stories were never finished. The renewed focus on Christopher Wilder reminds us of something critical. Cold cases are not closed cases. They are waiting for better tools, waiting for fresh eyes, waiting for someone to ask the right question. And sometimes, decades later, those questions finally get asked. If you want more deep dive investigations into unresolved cases, emerging evidence, and the story's history almost forgot, subscribe and stay with us. Because some truths take time to surface.